Picture this. Chennai, 1986. It's so hot that the tar on the roads is basically melting. And on the field, one man is batting like his life depends on it. He's cramping. He's vomiting between overs. He's losing kilo after kilo of body weight in real time on the field. Most players would retire hurt, right? But this guy, he doesn't walk off. He doesn't even blink. He goes on to score 210 runs. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Dean Jones. And today, we are asking the question, how good was he actually? Because spoiler alert, good might be underselling it. So let's rewind. Before the double hundreds, before the sprinting between wickets, Dean Mervyn Jones was just a kid from Coburg, a suburb of Melbourne, born on the 24th of March 1961. And cricket wasn't just a hobby in this household, it was basically the family religion. His dad Barney Jones was a Carlton Cricket Club legend, and his brothers Mark and Paul were both grinding it out in club cricket too. Now, if you grow up in a house like that, you don't come out gentle. You come out sharp, competitive, a little bit reckless. And that's exactly the cricketer Dean Jones became. By the 1981-82 season, he was playing first-class cricket for Victoria. And from there, buckle up, because things are about to get dramatic. Fast forward to 1984. It starts with someone else's misfortune. Graham Yallop goes down injured, and a young Dean Jones gets the call for the West Indies tour. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. Except, here's the twist. Jones himself was seriously ill before the match. Still, he scored 48. Now, 48 doesn't sound like a Hollywood ending, but Jones himself called it his best knock. That tells you everything about how this man thought about batting. It was never just about the runs. It was always about the fight. Which brings us back to Chennai, because we have to talk about it properly. Third test of his career. Third. The famous tied test of 1986. Jones scores his maiden test century in the first innings, but doesn't stop there. He keeps going and going, through cramps, through vomiting, through a body that is quite literally shutting down in the Chennai heat. At one point, he wants to retire hurt. Fair enough, right? The man's dying out there. But then, his captain Alan Border drops that legendary line. If you can't handle it, we'll get a Queenslander who can. And something in Jones just snaps into gear. He scores 210 in those conditions. He later said, I cannot remember a thing after 120 in that innings. He walked off 7 kilos lighter and straight onto a hospital dread. And to this day, that 210 remains the highest score by an Australian batsman in India. That's not just an innings. That's a war story with a scoreboard attached. And this is where Jones goes from a great player to a guy who quietly rewired an entire format. Before Jones, one-day cricket was basically test cricket but shorter. Batsmen nudged singles, admired the scenery, and generally behaved themselves. But Jones took one look at that and thought, not for me. He started sprinting almost every run, even the ones that looked physically impossible, just to rattle the fielders into panicking and fumbling. He would dance down the pitch at spinners, sometimes even moving before the ball was bowled, which today is a totally normal tactic. But back then, almost unheard of. He was quick, he was reckless, he was easy on the eye, and honestly, watching him bat must have felt like watching fast-forward cricket in a world that was still on regular speed. It took him 3 years to score his first ODI century, and then he scored centuries on back-to-back days. 104 against England, then 121 against Pakistan the very next day. And in 1987, he was a key man as Australia won their first ever World Cup. 314 runs, 350s. And a whole lot of running that probably terrified opposition fielders in their sleep. From hasn't scored 103 years to World Cup winner. That's some character arc. And by 1989, Jones was in England for the Ashes. And this tour might be peak Dean Jones. 566 runs in the series. a gritty 157 at Edgbaston, then 122 in the final test at the Oval. Threw in a 216 against the West Indies at Adelaide. And you've got a body of work so good that Wisden, cricket's Bible, named him Cricketer of the Year in 1990. At this point, everyone, commentators, fans, probably his own postman thought Dean Jones was about to become the face of Australian cricket for the next decade. And honestly, the numbers back them up. 52 tests, 3,631 runs, average of 46.55, 11 hundreds. And in 164 ODIs, he scored 6,068 runs at an average of 44.61 with a strike rate of 72.56. And across first-class cricket, 19,188 runs. 19,000 runs. Let that sink in. But here's where the story takes a turn nobody saw coming. Just 3 years after being named Wisden Cricketer of the Year, the man gets dropped from the Test team. Not because of bad form. His last Test innings in Australia was an unbeaten 150. His last series in Sri Lanka, scores of 57, 77 and a not-out century. He was in career best form and got shown the door anyway. And soon after, he was dropped from the ODI side too. Cricket man, sometimes it doesn't care how good you are. So, how good was Dean Jones? Good enough to redefine one-day cricket. Good enough to produce one of the most brutal innings in Test history. Good enough that his numbers still hold up against modern legends. Decades later, he was the godfather of one-day aggression, sprinting between wickets before it was ever cool. Sadly, Dean Jones passed away in September 2020, and he may not be with us anymore. But every time a batsman turns a 1 into a 2, that's him, still out there on the field. Dean Jones, gone, but never really gone from the game he reshaped.